Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are. My name is Ruth Dowse. I'm the Partnership and Engagement Lead for the Embrace Multicultural Mental Health Project at Mental Health Australia, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar. Today, we're talking about a community engagement project that we facilitated over the last 4 years, focusing on mental health and suicide prevention for community-led initiatives across Australia. I'm really, really glad that we can be joined today by two of our projects that we supported, and we're going to hear a little bit later on this afternoon from Johanna Nashmi from Starts in New South Wales, and also Amritha Apanadas and Arifa Asani, who are both joining us from Adelaide from the Survivors of Torture and Trauma Assistance and Rehabilitation Service, or STARS for short. So as we get underway this afternoon, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country that we're all meeting on today. And at Mental Health Australia, we acknowledge First Nations peoples as the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and their continuing connection to land, sea, and community. And we pay our respects to them and their cultures and to all elders, both past and present, and express our support to voice, treaty, and truth-telling. We'd also like to recognise the unique contribution of people with lived experience of suicide and mental ill health, and also those who love and care for them in championing mental health reform. And we celebrate people of all backgrounds, genders, sexualities, cultures, bodies, and abilities. For our webinar today, we're going to roughly cover 4 key areas. We're going to have a little bit of an overview of the Embrace Multicultural Health Project. We're also going to focus really specifically and honing on the COLD community engagement that we ran over 4 years. And then we're going to spotlight on the 2 community-led projects in Armidale in New South Wales and also in Adelaide, South Australia. And then there'll be an opportunity to answer some questions. So as we go through this afternoon, you'll be able to post your questions in the chat. You won't be able to see your question, but the panelists and the host will be able to see those as we go through. Also, just to note, there'll be a short questionnaire for you to fill out at the end. So just to begin, excuse me, we know migrant and refugees face unique mental health challenges in Australia, and particularly stresses including pre-arrival trauma resulting as a consequence of war, persecution, and human rights violations. And they've also faced significant challenges in terms of racism, language barriers, family separation. We know from a significant body of research that indicate people from refugee and refugee-like backgrounds will be at higher risk of psychological stress. And despite these risks, there's often a low uptake of mental health services amongst these communities. We know that Australia's mental health system and health system in general is not always equipped to fully meet the needs of growing migrant and refugee communities. And there are significant structural and systemic barriers, which include shortages in workforce, high costs of services, long wait times, limited availability of interpreters, often rigid service models, and gaps in cultural competence. We also know that promotion, prevention, and early intervention activities for community, by community, is critical to reducing stigma and early detection, and also to increase help seeking and building awareness. So as a response to this, the Embrace Multicultural Mental Health is funded by the Commonwealth Department of Health to provide a national focus on the mental health and suicide prevention needs for people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. And the key objectives of the Embrace Multicultural Mental Health Project is to improve that cultural responsiveness and diversity of our mental health workforces and services, Increase the participation of consumers and carers from migrant and refugee communities and backgrounds in mental health design, in the development of services, and also the evaluation of activities. And to increase the mental health awareness, systems knowledge, and capacity across migrant and refugee communities. So ultimately, we want to improve the outcomes for migrant and refugee consumers, carers, and their families. So some of our key activities through the project are we have the framework for mental health in multicultural Australia, which is a key organisational tool for mental health services located on the Embrace website. We also do a range of activities through our Knowledge Hub, and we do sector capacity building activities such as today's webinar. We ensure that there's community participation and engagement in the sector and in service activities. And we provide some community resources, service information, and multilingual information. Some of our projects that we're currently undertaking include the Embrace Suicide Prevention Pilot. We're currently also commissioned a national report on the state of multicultural mental health in Australia. And then today's focus is on the Cold Community Engagement Project. So the Cold Community Engagement Project was a project that we conducted over 4 years in partnership with local community, multicultural sector organisations and bicultural workers. And we chose 11 community organisations to work with across Australia over 4 years. Really what we wanted to do was to lead some co-designed focus projects that identified priorities and explored solutions in all of those 11 communities. We wanted to develop community-specific resources, initiatives, and solutions. And then we also developed some evaluation processes for all of those 11 projects, looking at what sort of community engagement was undertaken and the co-design approach. And we also engaged the Centre for Evidence and Implementation to develop case studies to support other services who are looking at adopting similar approaches. All of those case studies are located on the Embrace Project website, and I encourage you to have a look at them. So this is a map of all the projects that we funded over the 4 years. And as you can see, we have every state and territory represented in the project, and also a really kind of mix of metropolitan and rural and regional communities. And you'll see the 11 projects that we focused on there. In the first year, we worked with the Rohingya community in Melbourne in collaboration with the Southern Migrant and Refugee Centre. We also worked with the New South Wales Chinese Australian Services Society, focusing on the Chinese Mandarin speaking community. And the third project we worked in the first year was looking at multicultural young people in Darwin, and that was through Melaleuca, Australia. Round 2, in the second year, we worked with the Pacifica and Mara community, and that was through Brisbane South Primary Health Network. We worked with people from Afghanistan and Adelaide, and that's one of the projects we'll hear from a little bit later today. The third one in round 2, or year 2, was African Women in Perth in collaboration with Ishar Multicultural Women's Health Centre. Moving into year 3, we worked with a Tamil community in southwestern Sydney with Anglicare. We also worked with the Yazidi community in Armidale through STARTS, and that's the second project we hear about today. And we also worked with the Multicultural Hub in Canberra in the ACT, focusing on a number of different multicultural communities. And then the final year, we worked with the African Congolese community through the Albury Wodonga Ethnic Community Council, women belonging to Eritrean and Ethiopian backgrounds, Bhutanese and Chin communities, with the Migrant Resource Centre in Tasmania. And we extended the Yazidi community project in Armidale to focus on suicide prevention as well as mental health. So really the project and the focus of all 11 of those projects was to partner with local community leaders and grassroots community groups and organisations. We really had a very strong focus on engaging bicultural and bilingual workers to bridge those cultural and language gaps and to build on existing relationships and networks to strengthen their credibility and participation within those communities. All of the different projects adopted flexible engagement approaches to include diverse voices and meet the community needs. They all created safe spaces for culturally appropriate conversations to reduce stigma and foster openness. And there was a really wide range of engagement processes that happened as a result of the 11 different community approaches. And they all allowed sufficient time and resources to build trust, enabled deep engagement, and develop tailored culturally appropriate solutions. So I'm now going to hand over to Johanna, and Johanna is from the Service for Torture and Treatment of Rehabilitation Services in New South Wales, and Johanna led the project working with Yazidi community. Thanks, Johanna.
Thank you, Ruth. Hi, everyone. I'll share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Excellent. Beautiful. Thank you, Ruth, and the team for organizing this webinar. Hi, my name is Johanna. I'm from STARTS, which is the New South Wales Service for the Treatment and Rehabilitation of Torture and Trauma Survivors. I'm based in Sydney, and I'm the Senior Group Clinical Counselor Project Officer. I'm going to talk about the project called Community Engagement Project with Embrace Multicultural Mental Health Australia and around the Yazidi Wellbeing in Armidale. Together we plant, together we grow. As you can see, this is from the Shingal Community Garden. Next, I would like to do the acknowledgement of country. I acknowledge the Dharawal people of Campbelltown, where I live, and the Anoan people of Armidale, whose lands I travel between in my work and daily life. I pay my respect to elders past and present. Moving between these two countries reminds me of the deep importance of place, story, and connection in healing. I honor the resilience, wisdom, and cultural continuity of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. This is our musicians in the picture, Yazidi, local Yazidi musicians. He's holding his tambour, traditional musical instrument in Armidale. But who are the Yazidis? The Yazidis are ancient ethno-religious group from northern of Iraq with historic presence in Syria, Turkey, and Armenia. Follow Yazidism, an old monotheistic faith, religion. Central to their belief is Taus Malak, the peacock angel, symbol of light, renewal, and compassion. History and persecution. Yazidis have faced centuries of persecution and displacement due to their distinct faith and ethnicity. The most recent tragedy, 2014 ISIS genocide in Sinjar, the mountain Sinjar, forcing mass exile and trauma. The Yazidis in Australia since 2018, many Yazidis have resettled in Armidale, Wagga Wagga, and Toowoomba. Through Australia's humanitarian program. The community is now rebuilding life, culture, and belonging while maintaining strong family and faith traditions. I'll quote this part of a poem by a Yazidi poet, and it's a song as well. So it says, there is no refuge left for us on this earth. Only the heavens and God are our hope. It is a farman, the 74th, my brother. So farman means giving an order of collective killing, order to committing genocide. For the Yazidi people, survival and belonging are acts of faith carried through memory, ritual, and community. This question comes back again throughout our engagement with this community. What does healing look like when your very identity has been targeted for erosion? For people who have endured mass atrocities, murder, captivity, sexual slavery, forced displacement, and spiritual discretion, healing requires more than clinical techniques. It demands presence, humility, and capacity to build a human connection across profound difference. Cultural safety, spiritual respect, and narrative methods enable survivors to externalize trauma, reclaim voice, and reconnect with self and community. This caricature has been inspired by our engagement with the Yazidi community, and as well give me questions for my reflection, practice reflection. The fish and the sea in the therapy room. So here the fish coming from the sea, sitting in the therapy room, and the therapist asking or saying to the fish, the sea isn't in the room, the therapist said, yet the fish felt its tide with every breath. So when the therapist ignores the sea, it risks silencing the story. What do we lose when trauma is framed only as an individual wound in communities shaped by collective memory? I think individualizing trauma overlooks collective memory, cultural loss, and community-based pathways to healing, which is all this project about. We risk misunderstanding behaviors, emotions, or distress that are rooted in collective histories of genocide, displacement, and cultural repertoire. So now I will take you to the first initiative from this program, which is the Shingal Community Garden. Shingal is the name of the historic, inhabitants, location. Yazidis lived for this place for thousands of years. It's called Sinjar. It's been, but in their language they call it Shingal. So they call this based on the consultations and co-design with the community, process with the community. They call this initiative, this garden, Shingal Community Garden. So the Shingal Community Garden is a vibrant community-led initiative developed in Armadale to create a welcoming, shared, and safe space for the Yazidi community to connect, grow culturally significant food, and promote well-being through gardening and outdoor activities. The garden includes a yawning circle and with a fire pit in the middle, a space that holds deep cultural significance in Aboriginal and Yazidi and Australian traditions. This area serves as a gathering place for storytelling, sharing, playing music, and building trust, fostering both healing and cross-cultural understanding. The next initiative, the same actually, the Shingal Community Garden, so they connected and reached out with the Armadale Community Garden. Connection built with the Armadale Community Garden, where volunteers from the Shingal Garden engage in skill sharing, resource exchange, and community building, strengthening ties with the broader Armadale community and fostering mutual support. The next initiative is the Yazidi radio program. So this is still in the process of making. We've done a lot. This is one of its kind. It's going to be within for the Yazidi community. So the Yazidi radio program is a groundbreaking community-led initiative designed to amplify the voices, stories, and culture of the Yazidi community in Armadale. It will be broadcasting on 2ARM 92.1 FM. This 30 minutes weekly show promotes cultural identity, community connection, and positive mental health and well-being through storytelling, music, and conversation. This is going to be the first ever Yazidi radio program to be established in an English-speaking country, marking a historic milestone for Yazidi media and representation on a global scale. This is going, the other things that this program is developed and hosted by members of the Yazidi community, including young people, community leaders, and local volunteers. It features interviews, music, mental health content, and community updates. And you can see this, the broadcasters, they were interviewing people in the last Yazidi New Year event happening in Armadale. It was very vibrant and very colorful event. Another initiative, which is pottery, clay work. Trauma-informed pottery workshops. So the trauma-informed pottery workshops are creative and therapeutic initiatives designed to support healing, self-expression, and community connection for the Yazidi community in Armadale. Delivered in a safe, culturally respectful environment, these workshops combine art, mindfulness, grounding, trauma-informed care to support mental well-being and social inclusions. So these workshops engage Yazidi community members of all ages with a particular focus on women and youth. Many participants had limited prior experience with art, but were drawn to the therapeutic and community building nature of the workshops, led by a professional pottery facilitator trained in trauma-informed practice. Activities tailored to be gentle, culturally safe, and non-verbal, because it's tactile, because of the nature of the, tactile of the clay, making them accessible to participants regardless of language ability, or sometimes trauma is more than verbal. Trauma can be exhibited in the body. So some people, they can't, especially with the Yazidi clients and community, they endured like horrible events, and they quite still raw and new. It can't be articulated in words language. So the sense and motor aspect of working with the clay is so beneficial and so grounding. So, for example, I share this. One of the participants of the pottery workshops, and she's volunteer at the community garden. She created like a sign for her garden beds, and she gave me permission to share this story with you. What she wrote actually. So she said, I'm quoting her, "I chose two names for my garden. The first one is Armadale, which I picked to express my gratitude for all the help and warmth I've received since arriving in this beautiful city. The second name is Jamila, which means beautiful in Arabic. Jamila is also the name of my 10 years old daughter. I have no idea where she is now, as she was captured by ISIS. I miss her dearly." So, very sad. The other initiatives, Yazidi Music and Choir Group. Music in the Yazidi language and the Yazidi culture and tradition is really rooted. It's like not, it's ritual. it's a collective ritual in their collective memory. And especially the tambour, which is the instrument that you can see, it plays like a spiritual and cultural symbols for the Yazidi community. The Yazidi Music and Choir Group is a culturally rich, healing-focused initiative that brings Yazidi community members in Armadale together through music, traditional instruments, and group singing, rooted in Yazidi heritage and supported by a trauma-informed approach. The group promotes well-being, cultural pride, and social connection through the joy of making music. This program is open to Yazidi community members of all ages, musical backgrounds, with strong involvement from youth, women, and men. The program is inclusive and welcoming, require no prior music experience, incorporates traditional Yazidi instruments, like, for example, we bought 6 tambours, 6 guitars, 6 staffs, which is frame drums, co-facilitated by Yazidi community musicians, ensuring cultural integrity and relevance. Repertoire includes traditional Yazidi songs, spiritual chants, and collaboratively created pieces. This is very important. All of them are very important, but this one is so important for the Yazidi community, as they lost, for the last 2 years, they lost 2 people for suicide. Suicide is taboo, as in many cultures. The suicide prevention trainings are culturally adapted workshops designed to support the mental health and well-being of the Yazidi community in Armadale, based on the Wesley Mission Life Force model. These trainings aim to build community capacity in recognizing and responding to suicidal distress, while addressing cultural stigma, creating safe spaces for open conversation around mental health. We delivered 5 culturally tailored training sessions, were delivered to different groups within the Yazidi community to ensure comfort and relevance. So 2 workshops for young people, 1 workshop for men, 1 workshop for women, and 1 workshop for workers with the Yazidi backgrounds. We spent like 10 months till we reached this point and getting the courage to deliver this training. And we learned from this practice, because we reflected as well our own. We humans, we're interacting with the humans. We bring our own assumptions and all these stuff, values and belief system, and all, professional and non-professional. So we were hesitant and scared. How are we gonna, approach this with the community, with the high traumatic experiences, and they quite raw experiences? How are we going to talk about suicide? So we were hesitant, and talking with each other, and we don't want to do it because we don't want to distress people more. But we discovered we were wrong. Actually, we discovered that we acknowledge that sensitivity of the situation, but this sensitivity doesn't mean that we prevent us from doing the right things with consultation with the community. So we were really encouraged by and embraced by the feedback that we received from the participants. There were over 55 participants in total. So every single person attend the suicide prevention training with consultation and permission. They're going to be like a well-being ambassadors in the community. They will spread the word of mental health and well-being and access services and so on, and taking self-care and so on. So these training facilitated by 2 accredited senior staff with expertise in trauma-informed cross-cultural mental health, and all participants became part of the As Your Life Matter campaigns, receiving campaign merchandise and resources to continue the message within their own circle. So T-shirts, caps, and wristbands, and so on. And this is the Wellbeing Ambassadors. The Wellbeing Ambassadors Your Life Matters campaign is a grassroots initiative developed to empower Yazidi community members in Armidale to lead mental health and suicide prevention conversation within their own circles. It builds on as I mentioned, the momentum of the suicide prevention trainings and other community-based well-being programs by identifying and supporting local ambassadors to spread messages of hope, resilience, and support in culturally meaningful ways. So the second one, which is the mental health based QR codes, and we participate. This is initiative is a culturally inclusive digital strategy created to increase access to mental health support for the Yazidi community in Armidale by embedding QR codes into everyday items and community spaces. This initiative offers quick, discreet, and stigma-free access to well-being resources tailored to Yazidi culture, language, and lived experience. We created these 3 QR codes in Yazidi, English, Arabic, as well to bridge as well the gap because some of the Yazidi community members, they are illiterate. They can't read and write even in their own language. So this is very meaningful and to increase access to the information. Still, they're in the process of developing more resources in this space. Don't worry about the heading. That's the wrong heading. I will share like the last email I received from Armidale, and that's exactly copy paste from her email. She said, it is one of the most meaningful endeavors I have been involved in at START. Here are a few pictures as evidence of the impact on mental health CLSR clients. Please don't share the photos, so I don't share the photos here. 2 clients getting to work in the garden last week, one who ordinarily would not get out of the house or attend things. One of our longest mental health CLSR clients with her son, the complexity of their situation and the huge change in their demeanor and function, and seeing them together in the garden is truly touching. Her smile says it all, her son's smile. And some other feedbacks that we receive. For example, this garden will bring some relief to me. For the pottery group participants, I'm happy to be here. Building a stronger community starts with kindness and support. A well-being ambassador. Thank you. This is interesting. The radio training participants. What we have learned. The key learnings: effective work required a flexible, culturally responsive, community-led engagement. Stigma around mental health and suicide existed in both the Yazidi community and our society as well, our organization. Team members were also impacted by genocide, vicarious trauma, shaping how we approach the work. Training needed to be tailored to age, gender, literacy, cultural beliefs, etc. Culturally adapted suicide prevention increased participation. Many spoke about suicide for the first time. So culture here is so important. Key insight: direct communication is valued. Collective group-based approaches work best. Using metaphors help make taboo topics safe. Small cultural gestures build trust. Understanding caste, tribal structures supported respectful engagement. Broader context: racism, employment, relocation pressures shaped community needs. Community ownership grow through volunteerism, pride in project items, and open dialogue. The core message here: trust, cultural humility, consistent relationships make sensitive conversations safe, enabling the Yazidi community to lead their own healing. And the last story that I'm going to give you is apart from participants from the pottery workshops. She said, and I'm quoting here, "I chose two names for my garden bed. The first is Qani, a name that became sadly known due to the discovery of mass graves containing the remains of Yazidi genocide victims from Sinjar. During the 2014 genocide against the Yazidis, peaceful residents from Qani village and other areas of Sinjar suffered targeted violence and destruction. My parents and three brothers were killed by ISIS when they captured the village. One of my brothers survived by accident during the massacre, as the ISIS killers mistakenly believed he was dead among the bodies. The second name is New Beginning, as I feel that Australia offers me the chance to start over and live again." I'm ending the quote and I'm saying this is one of the learning as well principles here is dealing or engaging with a refugee community from a trauma lens is half wisdom. Refugees, they bring a lot of strengths as well. So we need to identify those strengths. Thank you very much. That's it for me.
Thank you, Johanna. It was a fantastic presentation and really demonstrates the scope and the diverse amount of initiatives that came through that project. We have noticed that some people are having difficulty seeing Johanna's slides, so I really apologize if you couldn't see those slides. Just to let you know that we have recording this particular session, and it will be available on our website from next week. So really sorry if you couldn't see Johanna's slides, but they will be available next week. There are also photos and case studies from Johanna's work that he's talked about today on the Embrace website under the Community Engagement Project section. So have a look there too, you'll see lots more information there. So please keep putting any questions that you have in the Q&A tab. We will have some time towards the end of the session this afternoon to answer those questions, but right now I'd like to hand over to Anarifa from STARS in Adelaide. Thank you.
Can you guys see?
Hear us?
It looks like it's
I can see your screen. Yes, I'll just if you are having trouble, just pop in the chat and we'll see what we can do.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah.
and you can see our slide.
Yes, thank you.
Lovely.
If you can't see, just put a note in the Q&A tab. We'll see what we can do. Thanks.
All right.
I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting in the Ghana lands today. So we are from STARS, similar to what STARS do. We offer support with survivors of torture and trauma. And today we would be talking about one of our program with Embrace. So we will be talking a bit about how we worked with the communities from Afghanistan and the approaches that we have used. And so we start with how did we start the build? So we built the right team. So at the heart of this project was a small but diverse core team. And it had a project lead, a project assistant, and a bicultural worker. and this is supported by the wider community's allied health and the therapeutic groups team. So what made this core team powerful was its diversity. So we had this team had different gender, ages, and languages and ethnic background. So each of our staff was able to bring their lived experience and their community relationship and their cultural understanding that helped us build the trust from the day one.
So just to preface the presentation, we're just going to give a little bit of context to the community. Refugees and migrants from Afghanistan are not a homogeneous group of people. There are multiple ethnicities, languages, and religious beliefs, also cultural and political and trauma histories. So, for example, predominantly we've got some of the largest ethnicities would be the Hazara, Tajik, Pashtun, Uzbek communities, and then various other complex identities within all of them. And as far as religion is concerned, yes, predominantly Muslim, but then there are different sects. So Sunni, Shia, Ismaili, and so different languages as well. You've got a community that speaks Pashto, you've got a community that speaks Dari, and then Hazaragi, and then there are dialects within each of them as well. So essentially, it's a community where a one-size-fits-all approach is not really suitable.
So before we dive into our engagement approach, so that's the next slide if you guys are moving it from your end. I'd like to acknowledge that the person who actually did all this amazing work, he's no longer working with us. So I would be actually talking on behalf of what he did. So we've had, to build this understanding, we've conducted around 25 group and individual consultations with around 127 community members that included men, women, and young people. And before each of these consultation, the staff met with the participants individually to explain the project's purpose and how their voices would shape its direction. So this simple step was very crucial. So it built trust, helped overcome hesitations around mental health, and ensured people felt safe and valued. So throughout this process, we had multiple viewpoints and personal stories and community concerns. And participants told us they appreciated having a space to talk openly, and many for the very first time. And their feedback shaped every step that we followed. So we also had more ongoing meetings with the community leaders to maintain the open communication, and we adjust the project as suggested. And again, we've also worked with some of our partnerships. So we engaged regularly with organizations such as TAFE, MCCSA, Islamic Society of South Australia, community centers, and the media like Fada TV, and Muslim women's associations and others. So these collaborations, again, expanded the project's reach and made services more accessible. So we worked with some of the media partners like Farda TV and Gan TV, and they played a key role in spreading some of the messages that have come after this program. That's one of the photo of multiple consultations that we've had.
And what we heard, some of the recurring themes that came out through the consultations were that there is quite a lot of stigma around mental health within the community. And a lot of that is driven by the fact that there is a lack of awareness of mental health services, mental illness. There's not a lot of understanding around it within the community. And with the stigma comes a lot of shame as well. And culturally, it's not really recognized as of yet as a thing. So, for example, we don't really necessarily have terminology within our languages that can directly convey the messages that we would want to when we're trying to talk about mental health. And some of the other things that the participants mentioned throughout the consultations were that we sort of tend to lack spaces or safe spaces where we can have discussions and honest discussions around mental health and the needs of the community around mental health. And another prevalent point that was raised by a lot of the people in the community were that there are quite a lot of misguided religious beliefs that fuel some of that stigma and shame around mental health struggles as well. So, for instance, something that a lot of people, if they're struggling with low mood or depression or anxiety, maybe their family members or maybe their friends or people that they work with or know would probably hint to things like, perhaps you've turned your back to God, or perhaps you're not praying frequently enough. And so that's why you're now starting to have, you're struggling with your mental health. So that's something that's affecting the community. And then there's also cultural superstitions as well. So there's a concept in the community of a shadow, and people would say things like, if someone, for example, is having a poor mental health, or if in severe cases, for example, if someone is having an anxiety attack or a panic attack, someone might say this person generally is accompanied by a shadow. So the shadow is probably doing something to them right now. So it sort of leans into a bit of a supernatural zone as well. And I think the other thing that came up with the community was that although we are a very social community in general, but because of migration and because of refugees resettling, for some people, those networks, those connections have been broken. Some people don't have a lot of family around them. And so there's also a lot of social isolation that then also fuels poor mental health. And then also, again, if you are somebody that does tend to have struggles with your mental health, you could potentially also be ostracized within the community.
So what we really heard from all of those consultations, like Arifa said, there's a strong need for safe and non-clinical mental health spaces. So where people feel that it's very much defined or designed by the needs of the community. And there's also like desire for more mental health and well-being groups co-designed with the community. And chronic pain is something that have come up really, and then they've asked if we could have programs that's more culturally appropriate, and where some of the programs that they've accessed in the hospitals and other settings, they find it really hard to engage because that didn't have any consideration of the culture in it. So we've then developed that program.
Yeah, okay.
Is the slide, are you guys able to see the slide? Okay. And then we've also had requests to have creative outlets and nature-based activities. And again, having more information about how to access some of the services. And also trying to organize some of these sessions through the religious leaders and in mosque. So in that case, they feel that they'll have more permission to be able to access some of the services that are available. Can we move on to the next?
Yeah, sure. Not really sure what's going on with the slides, but we'll keep going regardless.
We currently slide 8. Is that
Slide
where
8.
we are?
Yes, we're slide 8. Okay, good. And as part of what we heard, we tried to co-design some resources for the community to try and cater to their needs. And something that we tried to develop was a brochure. There are plenty of brochures around mental health out there, so nothing groundbreaking, but our intention with the brochure was that it needed to have very specific language. It needed to be very, very simple and intended for a community with very low literacy, mental health literacy, but also just general literacy. So it needed to be very visual, and the concepts had to be very accessible. So not very clinical, not very medical, just trying to keep everyday life in mind, and also to try and normalize the concept that mental health is not restricted to specific individuals, but that we all need to look out for our mental well-being. And so we created a brochure in English, which we then translated into Dari as well. And in addition to that, we also created 2 separate videos in collaboration with community elders and members of the community, where we try to raise some awareness about mental health and also how to look out for your own mental health, how to take care of it. So some tips and ideas. And then also, if you are struggling with your mental health, or how to recognize signs of struggle in yourself or the people around you, and then also how to seek services, or how to help someone that you think, or that you know that might be struggling, how to help them seek out services. So this was what our brochure looked like in English. And just to give you an example of the type of language used, for example, in our intro page, we said something like, mental health refers to the overall health of our mind. The health of our minds can affect how we think, feel, and behave. It affects how we make decisions, cope with everyday stress, and relate with those around us. So it was just, this was the consistent language throughout the brochure. And that's what it looked like in Dari. Which getting the language right was also very difficult. And we had to try and use the type of English language that would then also translate appropriately in Dari, because it doesn't, if you're trying to do literal translation, sometimes it really doesn't work. And so, yeah, there's just a few slides with just showing you the brochures. There is another page of the English brochure overlaid on top of the Dari brochure. So you can see we've used a lot of visuals in it, and it's just try and just support the writing, because again, it's a very low literacy community, so not everybody could really read the information on there. And
So now we are in slide 12.
Yes.
Is that the same from your end? Okay. So we've also designed some of the programs. And so what we did is the first 6 months, we've actually did a lot of deep listening and understood what the community need. And the next 6 months, we've really devoted towards what are the programs that have come out of those consultations. So one of the program was, we had an elderly men's outing program. Again, it was for social isolation, and like we literally sat with them and discussed where do they want to go, and then we developed some of the programs around that. And then we had a chronic pain session, which was again 11 sessions, and we did it in partnership with Primary Health Network. And we've also had women's well-being program, which is a 10-session program co-designed and did it in partnership with the community center. And we've also worked alongside with the Islamic Society SA and Mosque, and explored opportunities where we can use some of these brochures and the video that we have made in consultation with the community, and to use that in the awareness programs there. And some of these programs that we've initiated at that time continues now. So we've also, we have a program that we do with TAFE. And with the TAFE that we've started as a pilot program after this consultation, and now it's been, we do that every term in different TAFE. So, and we've also developed a new program called Together We Thrive, and Ariva will go through that.
yes, that's the next slide. So Together We Thrive is one of our most vibrant programs at the moment, and it came about from one of the consultation sessions with the ladies, because of how eager they were to have a well-being and supportive group with women where they felt safe and heard. It started becoming a weekly thing, and then over time, we tried to provide mindful activities, we did crafting, we did excursions. Strawberry picking was something that they said they really wanted to do in season. We tried to bring in activities such as yoga. We did sessions of trauma-informed yoga with them. We did Pilates and Zumba and dance and movement therapy. And it just the interest kept growing. It started with, I think, about 10, 15 women, and now every session we have about 40 women that come to the group, and over time they've taken quite a bit of ownership of the group, and they really, every term we decide on the programs based on what we've heard from the ladies, what they want to continue doing. So for example, we've done collaborations with Surf Life SA, where we've they've actually tried to do intensive swimming lessons in the swimming pools, and then they take them out for ocean safety lessons to kind of, because that is a need in the community, because majority of us come from a space where we've never really had much access to an ocean, and so people aren't really familiar with the ocean and the threats of the ocean, and they've really been enjoying that program. And the demand for that keeps growing. And so I think every term we do quite a few ocean safety programs, and the women, they love cooking, they love food. So we've done things like food safety handling courses with them. And now they cater for certain events. They're really taking ownership of that. And it's becoming turned into a community capacity building group. And yeah, I think they're going to be doing quite a lot of great things in the future in that group.
It's really thriving, as the name they had put. Yeah.
It started with Together We Thrive, and now we're transitioning into a CCB group where we're calling it Together We Are Thriving. So next was the TAFE.
Yeah, TAFE. So we've started with the TAFE consultation, and then now we continue to offer it throughout the year. And that again has like art, music, mindfulness, emotional regulation, physiotherapy, yoga, psychoeducation. So every term we design it as per the needs that arise in that community.
I'm just aware of that. Some of the feedback that we've heard from the different activities that we have done is, for example, from one of the men's outing groups, a gentleman said, "Coming here and meeting other Afghans of my age takes me back to my village and gives me a feeling of being connected to my villagers. This is a very special feeling." And one of the women from the TAFE Wellbeing session said, "I learned a lot about managing stress and anxiety." And another one said, "I was getting headaches nearly every day at around 10 a.m., but today I forgot about having any headaches." So seems to be working in some capacity.
So what worked really well, it's the bicultural workers and the recruitment of making sure that we've got so we were able to reach many communities, different ethnicities, and we've co-designed all the activities with the community. So everything that we designed was very meaningful, and also we've used the existing community spaces where people felt safe. So we actually found all our programs had very high engagement. And we've also really designed programs which is grounded in culture.
Like with anything, there definitely were challenges, and there were some learnings that came out of them. So one very significant challenge was having to, because of the lack of literacy in language, having to rely heavily on interpreters. And because of the diversity of the community and the diversity of the languages within the community, often matching and getting the right language and the right dialect has been quite a challenge, not just for within our program, but also from the feedback that we're hearing just in general in terms of seeking services as well. It's very hard to find an interpreter that speaks exactly your dialect. So communication is a bit of a barrier. Another thing that in terms of some of the technical difficulties that we had, because we aimed very high with the video and we did lots of filming, but as with community things, sometimes, particularly with the women that were involved in our videos who initially gave consent, over time changed their minds and they withdrew their consent. So we've had to do some rejigging of things, and that kind of gave us some stress around timelines. The other thing that we found a challenge was because of how much the community valued interaction with the elders and getting them involved and using their voices. It was quite difficult to engage with community elders and religious elders because they are quite busy and popular people in the community. So that was a challenge. And also in terms of just the time frame of the program, how things were run on our end, and also how, because of the way that by the time we got to meet the community and get to know everyone, and by the time we were thinking of starting to roll out some of our programs, there's also there's the English calendar, that's the work calendar, year calendar, and then there's the cultural calendar. So then we ran into a time where we couldn't do anything for a period of 2 months because there were just there was Ramadan and there was Eid, and we couldn't interact with the community much for that. So, and then the other most significant challenge that came out was identity. So using the term Afghan is, again, reflecting back on the beginning of the presentation, it is a very diverse community, and the term Afghan, which is commonly used to refer to the community, is actually quite contentious in the community, and certain ethnic groups and certain individuals prefer not to be identified as Afghan, because for some of us that has colonial history, and it's come out of forced assimilation. So that's something that in professional spaces we need to start considering and being mindful of using a term that is inclusive, which is why we're trying to intentionally and purposefully refer to the community as refugees and migrants from Afghanistan instead of using the term Afghan, because that doesn't really represent everyone in the community. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, we've
Thank you. That's
just gone a bit off.
It's fine. It absolutely demonstrates the richness and the diversity and the many, many learnings and complexities to all of these projects. I really want to thank everyone for your patience, particularly for those who struggled with not being able to see the slides, and thank you for those who put tips in terms of technical tips on how to see the slides. I just will address very quickly a couple of questions. You can find out much more information about all of the 11 projects on the Embrace website. And there are case studies of the projects, and also some common themes that occurred across the 11 projects. So I really encourage you to have a look at the Embrace website and to look at those case studies. All of the resources that were developed from the 11 projects are also available on the Embrace website, and we're very happy to share those with you and for you to use those if you'd like to use those in your communities, particularly with the ones that have particular cultural adaptations or in particular languages. Really feel free to use those. If you'd like more information about any of the projects, please either contact our speakers directly at Starts or Stars, or you can contact us at Embrace. I really hope that today we've been able to showcase some of the really clear benefits of co-designing and working with communities to find out what their needs are, and then working with them to tailor solutions to those needs. And that's really what we're wanting to do at Embrace, is make mental health services relevant and appropriate for people from migrant and refugee communities. So thank you again for your patience and persistence. I'd particularly like to thank our presenters from today's session, to Johanna, to Arifa and Amrita. Thank you very much for your wonderful contributions. And as I say, please contact us at Embrace if you would like any further information. We will make this recording available on the Embrace website from next week onwards, so please go to there if you'd like to see the full presentation and see any slides that you weren't able to see today. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.